The Indian economy continues to grow, showing no signs of stopping. Housing prices are hitting all-time highs with projections indicating no slowdown. The Sensex and Nifty hit an all-time high and the combined net worth of all Indians crossed $3 trillion. But while the country has been booming for decades, one group has been left behind: young Indians. Older Indians saw their share of wealth increase exponentially as most of their wealth is tied in with the markets, while those under 40 saw a precipitous decline in wealth as wages continue to plummet in a market that increasingly favors capital. Inflation and COVID-19 also disproportionately affect the young people who are just starting out with little or no savings, living paycheck to paycheck. The global charts comparing inflation with wage growth paints a worrying picture for the finances of young Indians, as individuals realize that economic prosperity is now impossible without effective investments. The model of working and saving for retirement is completely outdated, as the wages, if not invested effectively, will continue to depreciate rapidly. If your parents did not invest in the stock market, which is likely true for most middle class and the underclass Indians, it is effectively impossible to lead a comfortable life on your current wages, unless and until you can competitively invest in the markets. The older generations, however, are better leveraged and have benefited from times of low interest on loans and mortgages. We can see the symptoms of such economic dysfunction as a large number of skilled Indians are emigrating to the West in search of better wages and a higher return on the effort that they are putting towards their work. In this video, let us explore how financial prosperity of young Indians has been stolen from them. Chapter 1: Housing and Rental Crisis. India has been going through hopeful optimism for its future. It has a strong labor force with very good demographic distribution, which is poised to lead the world. While the rest of the world is grappling with problems of demographic collapse, India is in the best position to take advantage of the collapsing population as Europe stares down the barrel of stagnation while China is bracing for the disastrous effects of the one-child policy. India has a golden opportunity to apply its excellent demographics to its advantage. The main prerequisite is to ensure that the youth are provided with opportunities to apply their skills and effort through effective employment and opportunities for entrepreneurship. However, reality on the ground today is bleak. The optimism is seemingly more and more misplaced as young Indians have been thrown under the bus. Life has become several times more expensive. Young Indians are left dumbfounded hearing what their parents or grandparents could afford with their salaries, while they struggle to survive and are barely able to make ends meet. Young Indians who are entering the workforce in times of global financial instability are realizing how the lifestyle of living in a good house, owning a car, sending children to quality schools, and going on family vacations is now becoming more and more unaffordable. One of the main causes for this affordability crisis is the astronomical increase in housing, which has led to prices shooting up in the other areas of the economy as well. It has grown into an exploitative system which has made it extremely hard for young Indians to enter the market as rents increase, and affording to own a house has become an unattainable dream for most young Indians as they grapple with increasing interest rates. Supply has also seen a decline, with the biggest drop being a 25% reduction in the number of new properties entering the market for 2023. At a price-to-income ratio of 11, housing in India is more than twice as expensive as its affordability benchmark of 5. Housing in countries like the United States, Australia, and Germany, with PTIs of 3.6, 7.6, and 9 respectively, is more affordable. This is during a time when these countries as well are also facing severe housing crisis. Wealthy older Indians are now buying up overseas properties in their children's names through RBI's liberalized remittance scheme and shell companies, while majority of the population is forced to rent subpar housing in their own country. The share of homes owned by older generations has grown significantly compared to the past. The proportion of homes owned by Indians over 55 has increased, with 73% living in their own homes, while home ownership among those under 45 has fallen. Low wages and growing unaffordability mean younger generations are forced to rent or bear the burden of hefty home loans, while also taking on the risk of investing in under construction projects which are often always never delivered on time. As many as 54,000 plus cases related to the delivery of real estate are pending in the courts across the country. Older generations have bought up land in a frenzy while it was cheaper, while also creating and voting for a system that benefits them meaningfully at the detriment of the young. Old people can avail benefits such as low taxes on capital gains, the ability to forego property taxes through various state programs which offer rebates ranging from 10% to 30%, and some even going as far as to completely exempt seniors. They can also avail deferments and much more. This reduces the pressure on old Indians to sell their homes or pass it on to the next generation. Growth in medicine has further led to an increase in lifespans. People are living longer now, with life expectancy in India increasing from 62 in 2000 to 70 in 2018. This is a positive development and a great thing. However, as people live longer, they are likely to hold on to their houses for longer, either living in it or renting it. There is no incentive to pass it on or to sell it, especially when its value keeps on rising. These homeowners are staying in their homes for longer than ever. Almost 50% of them own their own homes outright. To make matters worse, retirement homes are a rising trend, with projections indicating a rise in market value from $3 billion to $12 billion. Older Indians are also investing in luxury properties, which is further increasing prices and making housing unaffordable for young Indians, ultimately leading to a situation where most young Indians are doomed to continuously rent or purchase houses at substantially higher costs and interest rates when compared to the older generations. Bachelors in India face stigma and find it difficult to find properties to rent. Young Indians have been aggressively priced out of independent houses and prime real estate close to city centers or even within city limits. These properties are out of reach for most young people who are forced to live in apartments near the edges of cities or on its outskirts. This further increases commuting time and costs for young Indians traveling to workplaces within city limits. New players have entered the housing market. These new players, which are private equities and real estate investment trusts, or more commonly known as REITs, are directly competing with young Indians who want to own their own homes and forcing them to rent instead. In July 2024, private equity investment in Indian real estate grew to $2.5 billion, seeing a 20% increase, with 49% of the investments being made in residential properties. Exploitative and predatory financial institutions such as BlackRock have also been gradually increasing their investment and influence in India. BlackRock recently acquired a stake in General Infrastructure Partners and a 50-50 split with Reliance NGO. This is a company which has severely impacted and caused the housing crisis in the US by purchasing residential properties and renting them out, whose profits are then distributed among the investors. These new competitor firms are able to buy large swaths of homes in one go and make unconditional offers with cash. Young people are finding themselves priced out, as these firms which are offering owners prices that are 20 to 30% higher than market value. Unlike regular landlords, corporate landlords are highly sophisticated and will do everything to generate additional yield, even breaking the law. REITs are very similar and also serve as investment vehicles into real estate. 4 REITs are already publicly listed in India. They function similar to private equities by acquiring residential and commercial property, which they then rent out. The profits derived from the rent is then divided between the investors. The end game for corporate ownership of homes is very obvious: to own as many homes as humanly possible and create forever renters out of would-be young Indian home buyers. And it seems they are well on track of achieving their goal. Rising rents make it more challenging to save up and buy a home, and with increasing competition from private equity and REITs, we can safely conclude that inheriting a home is one of the last hope for young Indians wanting to own their own homes. Chapter 2: Wealth and Education. Historically, housing has been a big wealth store. But with limited supply created by older generations and increasing competition from institutional competitors like private equity, wealth is declining among younger generations. There are a few common explanations older generations give for this. The first is that young people don't work hard enough or that they are lazy, which is far from the truth. Gen Z is at the receiving end as they are constantly pressured for being unable to find or hold on to jobs while they are paid in peanuts. Young Indians are frustrated with the low wages, while they are forced to sacrifice any sort of work-life balance for the sake of profits. Profits which they don't receive and gets divided among the investors at the end of the day. Companies like Cognizant are offering 2.5 lakh per annum for freshers as salary, an amount on which it is impossible to live comfortably in a metro. The Bar Council of India has set the minimum pay for fresher junior lawyers with degrees at 20,000 per month, when a shared PG in a metro costs from 5,000 to 12,000 rupees per month. All the while, young professionals have also spent lakhs on acquiring their degrees. The Economic Survey of 2024, tabled by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, highlights India has 18.3% unpaid workers and 57.3% of the total workers as self-employed. The survey highlights growth and attributes it to economic reforms, tech advancements, and skill development. This, however, is not the whole truth, as most of the 57% are not new business owners but are farmers and gig workers in delivery and mobility. Gig workers do not enjoy basic protections, health benefits, and aren't even provided with an employee provident fund. Contracting these individuals, not as employees but as partners, severely disadvantages them while hiding true unemployment behind the gig economy. The second point raised is that young people spend money unnecessarily. This conclusion arises out of studies that found that 68% of Gen Z urban males spend money each month on clothing and accessories compared to 54% of overall Gen Z. But although young people spend more money on experiences and technology, they are actually spending less on physical goods. They are increasingly spending on events, eating out, travel, luxury and premium goods, cheap fashion, cosmetics, and electronics, indicating that consumption patterns are changing, balancing out most increases in spending. The primary contributor to higher spending with young people is the increased relative value of housing, healthcare, and education. This also results in a tendency where young people are doom spending as they see no hope in saving towards owning a home. Therefore, choosing to instead spend on events and experiences while maxing credit card debt and taking on payday loans. Payday loans are a growing market mainly because of its accessibility through apps, where people can avail instant microcredit without any collateral, a trend that has led to more scams and crime, reaching a point where people are getting extorted through these apps. Close to half of urban Indian youth are choosing to live in the moment while taking on debt, as they don't see themselves realistically being able to own a home. And when the future is uncertain, it's better to maximize your happiness now. In fact, for the majority of young Indians, if you remove housing from the equation, younger generations spend less on average. And contrary to popular belief, Gen Z and millennials are saving more of their earnings than older generations. Lastly, people will claim that young people are unskilled and need more education. But this is absolutely unfair. Every subsequent generation has become more educated than the last, and Gen Z will continue this trend and become even more educated than the millennials. This, though, is expected because society has pushed the narrative that college is necessary to progress in life. This would be fine and dandy if there was a value to education. But sadly, college is more expensive and less beneficial than ever. The argument of lacking skills is further used to drive and pressure young Indians towards spending their own money after college in order to acquire certifications from various sources ranging from private companies like Upgrad to premier institutions such as IISCs and IITs. A decent number of scammers have also flooded the market with worthless courses. The skills market has become very lucrative as young Indians are forced to acquire costly and meaningless certifications out of their own pocket as it is necessary in order to apply for jobs. Companies have successfully pushed the economic burden of skill development and capacity building on the employees. Let us now compare the cost of going to college for older and younger Indians. In the 1990s, it is estimated that 88% of total educational expenditure came from government sources. On the other hand, it is estimated that the share of state financing increased from about 57% in the 1950s to about 90% in 1999. Further, if we take a look at the 70s average fees, it was about 165 rupees, which inflation adjusted to now is around 6,400 rupees in 2024. The average college fee now is around 2,50,000 rupees, meaning there has been a whopping increase of about 98% in the cost of attaining a degree. Degrees from premier institutions like IIMs are tripling in cost every 5 years. If we factor in fees within direct expenditure by universities, it amounted to only 30%, with the rest being provided by the government in the 1970s. This left the only household expenditure on books, transport, and stationery. However, if we are to compare this to now, younger Indians do not enjoy the same benefits as they were enjoyed by the older generations, with most of the direct expenditure of universities now coming from fees that are directly collected from the students. The generations that benefited of the subsidized education were very quick to pull up the ladder, ensuring that the younger generations would not benefit from the very same cheap subsidized education that they did. Private education has led to further exploitation of the younger generation, who were already robbed of benefits. Almost all educational institutes are now for-profit organizations with the sole purpose of enriching its owners, primarily industrialists and politicians from a generation who enjoyed the benefits of subsidized education. Students have no other choice but to educate themselves into debt in order to qualify and meet the steep requirements set by recruiters. Unlike in the past, education is no longer a path to economic prosperity. Instead, young Indians are being forced into a perpetual education and credential machine. What once required a bachelor's degree and entry-level experience now requires a master's degree and a minimum of 5 years of experience. Chapter 3: College and Consumer Debt. Given how expensive education is, most students are forced into taking on educational loans with high interests. As reported by the public sector banks, the details of the educational loans disbursed in 2020 to 2021, 2021 to 2022, and 2022 to 2023 were Rupees 11,448 crore, Rupees 16,193 crores, and Rupees 17,668 crores respectively. In these years, educational loans were disbursed to about 4.7 lakhs, 4.56 lakhs, and 4.97 lakh accounts respectively. Within the last 3 years, a total of 45,309 crore rupees has been provided as educational loans to 13.6 lakh accounts, where we can see a trend as young people are taking up more and more of these educational loans. Compare this to a time when education was subsidized by 70 to 80%. It is disturbing that now young Indians are forced to become debtors as investors salivate over the prospect of further growth in the educational loan market. This growth has also been attributed to young Indians taking loans in order to study abroad with the hopes of finding a job and settling there. I shall cover this topic in a later video. But in short, this is leading to exacerbated brain drain from India's talent pool as young Indians see very little hope in India and are choosing to emigrate for a better quality of life. However, these desperate students are being exploited by these universities and countries as they are a substantial part of the economy. For example, universities in Canada and Australia are being kept afloat with revenue from Indian and Chinese students. Almost all of these students are failing to procure jobs and are just left with crippling debt at the end of the day. But this trend has not just been limited to educational loans. With rising living costs and stagnant wages, the only way to make ends meet for young Indians is accumulating more and more debt. Just a decade ago, credit cards were a rarity with stringent eligibility criteria. From 2 crore in 2011 to 10 crore in 2024, the number of credit cards issued has seen a phenomenal jump, with total debt at 2.5 trillion, a 23% increase. Credit card defaults were at 4,072 crores in the financial year of 2023. Defaults have grown by 950 crores from the financial year of 2022. This increase is happening while young people are earning lesser and lesser than ever. Chapter 4: Corruption and Anti-Meritocracy. India is a very corrupt country where people are desperate to get ahead at the cost of anything, even if it means opening an industrial-scale call center to scam your own countrymen. Almost all young Indians are struggling to make ends meet and are constantly left questioning themselves, thinking that they are doing something wrong, or maybe they aren't skilled enough or deficient in some way. But this is not true at all. One of the reasons most young Indians are unable to get ahead is because of the rampant corruption that has seeped into every aspect of life. The system itself is inherently corrupt and holding everyone down. Any documentation, permits, or authorization requires bribes, with even the lowest level data entry employees demanding bribes. Opening a business, building something, organizing an event, everything has a predefined set rate that needs to be paid as bribe. Indian parents always tell their children that the real world is different from the ideal expectations you have as a child. What they mean is that the world is a very corrupt anti-meritocracy where skills and hard work amount to nothing. Infrastructure is broken because contractors have to pay fixed cuts to municipal authorities, engineers, and elected leaders. It's not that we cannot build good roads, but it's impossible to do it while every authority has a fixed percentage of the cost to be paid as bribes. Officials within the executive are all forced to participate in a system where they have to pay exorbitant bribes for good postings. The more urban and developed the posting, the more the bribe they have to pay. This is true even for the police. Thus, they are forced to be corrupt. Want a better posting? Pay a bribe, leaving you with no alternative but to engage in corruption in order to make back the money paid or in order to make money to pay the bribe. Bribes have become essential for career advancement. Reservation has broken meritocracy in India and fails to achieve its purpose of uplifting the downtrodden. It is used mainly as a tool to play vote bank politics by appealing to voters based on caste lines. When close to 50% benefit from relaxed standards, the efficiency of the whole organization is jeopardized, while leaving behind an extremely dissatisfied group of competitive young individuals. Young people are forced to focus on reservation and fight amongst themselves for scraps, while instead they could be demanding for more. With corporates now pushing DEI, that is diversity, equity and inclusion in India, meritocracy has been utterly decimated and completely replaced with nepotism and a pay-to-play system. While at the same time, national qualification exams like NEET and NET are plagued by paper leak scandals and students are questioning the very integrity of these exams, especially when they have spent years of their lives tirelessly preparing for these exams. A sort of silent understanding has penetrated the country where people have realized that it's impossible to get ahead by being fair and just. The older generations simply dismiss the dysfunction as, oh, it's the Kali Yuga, while they become more and more economically prosperous. And young Indians are left completely defeated and disillusioned. Chapter 5. Why Politicians Don't Care. Why and how would the government tolerate and promote such economic policies, especially when it's destroying prosperity for young Indians? Do they not care about young people and their future? The short answer, they don't. The freedom fighters who fought for our independence are often revered as godlike figures. They are respected as distinguished and experienced individuals who fought to create an independent India and laid the framework for one of the greatest nations the world has ever seen. Surely, these men must have been wise and old like our current leaders when they started their struggle for freedom. Let's see. Mahatma Gandhi was 24 when he started his struggle in South Africa and 45 when he started the Indian freedom movement. Bhagat Singh was 21. Sardar Patel was 40 when he started his political career. Subhash Chandra Bose was 21 years old when he became the president of the All India Youth Congress. Lal Bahadur Shastri was 30 when he became the president of Allahabad Congress. Ram Prasad Bismil was 18 when he wrote his revolutionary poem. The controversial Vinayak Damodar Savarkar was 16 when he started his underground revolutionary movement. And finally, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was 32 when he chaired the Constitutional Drafting Committee. Now, let's take a look at the Indian government today. Average age of 18th Lok Sabha MPs is 56 and the 17th was 59, with over 50% of MPs above the age of 55. The median age of India sits at 28.5. This is a huge disconnect. The leaders of the very first Lok Sabha had an average age of 46.5. There has been a 10-year increase in the average age of MPs when we compare the 18th Lok Sabha to the first Lok Sabha. We are ruled over by a completely different generation who have competing interests to secure their investments and retirements, while young people struggle for basic wages and being able to afford anything. India has become a country for old men, as the young flee the country in record numbers, since they feel like they have no power or say in society. Nepotism is another severe problem that makes the situation more dire. 100% of all young elected MPs come from families with political backgrounds. If daddy is an MP, then his darling son or daughter regard the constituency as their own heirloom. When the time for choosing a candidate for the general election comes around, parties hand out tickets to the relatives of MPs as though they are a family inheritance. Whichever party you look at in every part of India, nepotism is rampant. Merit, a record in public life, knowledge, skills, character are all irrelevant. If you have the right surname, you will get a ticket. And guess who benefits from the rampant corruption? It is the politicians, regardless of which party they belong to. Wealth is continuously growing and pooling with the older generations, while young people get poorer and poorer. Education continues to increase in price while becoming less valuable in the market. Consumer debt is rising rapidly, burdening young people more than ever. The Indian government continues to spend money like it grows on trees, handing out benefits to old and protecting their investments while taxing the young. All of this is happening while young people are split between the BJP or Congress. Wake up, the solution isn't either of them. We've seen both parties come in and out of power over decades, and your lives have continued to get worse. They have taken away your dream of starting a family. Marriages are seeing a precipitous decline as young people struggle to settle down. They took away your chance to own a home. And now, as you are tied up for a lifetime in servitude in order to maximize shareholder value for shareholders who are disproportionately old, will you let them drain you of every last bit of your future and sell it to the West while you are gaslit into working 70-hour work weeks? Will you now abandon the right to have weekly holidays because it is apparently an un-Indian concept, meaning that you now have to work yourself to death while trying to be truly Indian, as the older generations profit off of your backs? Will you stand up and say enough is enough and take your own future into your own hands? Thank you for watching till the end. For more such analysis, subscribe to The Desi Realist.